More than 2,000 years ago, around 475 BC, a Chinese statesman and fish cultivator named Family recorded a system that would quietly transform how communities produced food. In his agricultural work, commonly known as Yang Yujing, he outlined fish-raising techniques so productive that a modest pond could yield remarkable amounts of protein from a surprisingly small area of land. The principle was simple but powerful. Design a balanced water ecosystem where fish, plants, and microorganisms support one another. Once established, the pond required minimal outside input. Families could harvest food year after year without constant feed purchases, complex infrastructure, or dependence on distant supply chain. These methods endured through shifting dynasties, regional conflicts, and rising empires because they worked. Knowledge that keeps people fed rarely disappears. Yet in modern America, few households are familiar with small-scale pond aquaculture, despite the fact that fish farming has sustained more people across history than almost any other concentrated protein system. That gap in awareness raises an important question. Today, we're exploring how to create a regenerative backyard pond ecosystem, one that functions almost like a living pantry. By the end, you'll understand how to build a self-sustaining protein source that largely feeds and regulates itself, producing more than enough food for an average household. And imagine this. Years from now, while others stress over rising grocery bills and fragile supply chain, you step outside, look across your pond, and feel a quiet confidence that comes from producing your own food. But before we get there, you need to understand one crucial principle: the history, how this knowledge slipped away. Long before written manuals and royal decrees, the idea began with simple observation. Around 3,500 BC, during the Neolithic era along the Yellow River in northern China, farmers noticed a pattern. After seasonal floods receded, fish, especially carp, were left behind in shallow pools scattered across the landscape. Instead of letting those pools dry up, people deepened them slightly and sealed the edges with clay. The result? The fish survived. They grew. They reproduced. And when food was scarce, they could be harvested on demand. This wasn't agriculture in the modern sense. It was cooperation with natural systems, working with water instead of fighting it. By the time of the Shang dynasty, around 1600 BC, fish ponds had become more intentional. Oracle bone inscriptions refer to what translates roughly as fishing in the garden. Today, historians understand this to mean managed ponds built directly into farming plots. Wealthy households kept decorative ponds filled with brightly colored koi. Rural families maintained practical ponds stocked with common carp. Both systems provided food, but only one required status and official approval: the accidental birth of polyculture. Centuries later, during the Tang dynasty in the 7th century AD, an unexpected political decision changed aquaculture forever. The imperial family carried the surname Li. The common carp shared a similar pronunciation in Chinese. Out of reverence, or perhaps superstition, the emperor restricted or discouraged the farming of common carp across the empire. For farmers, this was devastating. Carp had been a primary protein source for generations, but instead of collapsing, they adapted. They began stocking ponds with multiple fish species rather than relying on just one. Bottom-feeding mud carp that consumed sediment nutrients, silver carp that filtered algae from midwater, grass carp that grazed on aquatic plants near the surface, bighead carp that fed on zooplankton. Each species occupied a different ecological layer. There was minimal competition and almost no wasted nutrients. The pond became a vertically integrated food system, balanced, layered, and largely self-regulating. What started as a restriction turned into innovation. This marked one of the earliest true examples of polyculture. Multiple complementary species sharing a single ecosystem to maximize output. By the 1200s, European travelers writing about China described village fish ponds as a defining feature of rural life. Some ponds had been producing food for centuries. They yielded thousands of pounds of protein annually, without commercial feed, without mechanized systems. The ponds sustained themselves through biological balance. Why America never adopted it? The closed-loop pond systems described by early thinkers like Family remained largely rooted in Asia. When European settlers arrived in North America, they brought livestock traditions instead: cattle, pigs, and chickens. Those animals required fencing, stored feed, cleared pasture, and daily labor. The cultural mindset favored land-based husbandry. An edible pond that largely managed itself may have seemed too simple or too unfamiliar to adopt widely. By the 20th century in America, backyard ponds were associated with decoration, not nutrition. Ornamental koi for aesthetics, garden fountains for ambience. Water features became symbols of leisure rather than resilience. Somewhere along the way, the functional pond, the one that quietly produced food year after year, faded from public memory. The knowledge wasn't lost because it failed. It was forgotten because other systems became dominant. And that distinction matters. The 1960s rediscovery, Auburn University studies. In the 1960s, as concerns about long-term food security began surfacing in the United States, a small group of researchers revisited older aquaculture principles. At Auburn University, fisheries scientist H. Desk Swingle and his colleagues began experimenting with small, intensively managed ponds. Some of their test systems measured roughly 1,000 square feet, about the footprint of a modest above-ground swimming pool. Instead of relying on a single species, they applied concepts similar to traditional polyculture. They stocked ponds with compatible native fish such as channel catfish and bluegill, allowing different feeding behaviors to reduce waste and improve nutrient cycling. With simple fertilization strategies to stimulate natural plankton growth, the ponds became highly productive. The results were striking. Researchers documented harvests reaching approximately 350 pounds of fish from ponds of just 1,000 square feet under managed conditions. By comparison, a much larger area devoted to cattle pasture typically yields significantly less edible protein per square foot and requires fencing, feed inputs, veterinary care, and ongoing infrastructure. In terms of space efficiency, small pond systems demonstrated the ability to produce substantial protein with relatively low external inputs. The findings were published. A niche group of sustainable agriculture advocates and early permaculture designers took interest. But the concept never entered mainstream agricultural policy. There were no major subsidy programs built around backyard pond systems, no widespread extension office campaigns promoting small-scale fish production for households. Meanwhile, industrial meat production continued expanding into a multi-billion-dollar sector, supported by established supply chains, processing facilities, and marketing networks. Large systems tend to reinforce themselves. So the pond concept remained at the margins, practiced quietly by enthusiasts, homesteaders, and small farmers. The knowledge didn't disappear. It simply never became conventional. How the closed-loop system works. Component 1. Ducks, the biological managers. In traditional East Asian pond systems, waterfowl were often integrated directly into aquaculture. Ducks weren't added by accident. They played an ecological role. As ducks swim, they disturb bottom sediments, circulating nutrients into the water column. Their manure contributes nitrogen, which fuels microscopic algae growth. That algae feeds zooplankton. Zooplankton feeds small fish. Small fish feed larger fish. Meanwhile, ducks forage on insects, tender aquatic plants, and occasionally small aquatic organisms. It's nutrient cycling in motion. A small flock of 3 to 5 ducks can also provide a steady supply of eggs. The breed Khaki Campbell is particularly known for high egg production, often laying between 280 and 340 eggs per year per bird under good conditions. Studies suggest that ducks with access to natural pond ecosystems can forage a meaningful portion of their diet, sometimes around 20–30%, from insects and aquatic vegetation, reducing supplemental feed requirements. In this system, functions overlap. Ducks fertilize the pond grows natural food. Fish convert nutrients into protein. Plants absorb the excess. You harvest what the ecosystem produces beyond its needs. Component 2. Plants, the living filter. Aquatic plants are not decorative extras. They are the filtration and oxygenation system of the pond. Emergent plants such as cattails absorb excess nitrogen and phosphorus through their root systems, helping stabilize water chemistry. A dense planting along shallow margins can significantly improve clarity and reduce nutrient spikes. Water lilies provide shade, moderating water temperature and limiting evaporation during hot months. Submerged oxygenators like hornwort and anacris release oxygen during daylight hours, critical for fish health. Floating plants such as water lettuce and duckweed are extremely efficient at nutrient uptake. In fact, duckweed has been studied in wastewater treatment systems for its rapid growth and nutrient absorption capacity. Under optimal conditions, it can double its biomass in under 2 days. Ducks readily consume it, turning excess nutrients into eggs. Modern aquaponics research, essentially a controlled form of polyculture, has demonstrated that plant systems can remove a large percentage of nitrogen waste generated by fish. The plants absorb nitrates. The water clears. The fish remain healthy. When balanced correctly, the system becomes low maintenance because each component moderates the others. Component 3. Fish, the protein engine. Fish selection depends on climate and local regulations. In much of the United States, Bluegill and channel catfish are common pond species. Bluegill are hardy and reproduce naturally once established, creating a self-renewing population. They typically reach harvest size, around 6 to 8 inches, within 2 years. Channel catfish grow more quickly, often reaching 1 to 2 pounds within about 18 months in well-managed ponds. Tilapia grow faster still, frequently reaching about 1 pound in 5 to 6 months under warm conditions. A small pond stocked with 50 tilapia fingerlings can yield a substantial harvest within a single growing season. However, tilapia are restricted or regulated in certain states because of their invasive potential in warm climates. Always verify local wildlife and aquaculture regulations before stocking any species. The goal is not maximum density, it's balance. Component 4. Bacteria, the invisible workforce. The most important players in the pond are invisible. Beneficial nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia from fish waste and decomposing matter into nitrates and then into nitrates. Plants absorb those nitrates as fertilizer. This process, known as the nitrogen cycle, is the biochemical backbone of the entire ecosystem. Once established, the cycle largely maintains itself. Instead of managing daily inputs like an industrial farm, you are observing and gently adjusting a biological community. You are not operating machinery. You are stewarding relationships between organisms. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon.